If you've been around for my last few videos, you've probably realized by now I'm on a little bit of a flower kick. So in keeping with that theme, we're going to be making some homemade bookmarks, but adding a very botanical, flowery, and vintage theme. My name's Bethany, and welcome to Joyful Habits. Hello friends, so glad you stopped by today. Today we are making some homemade bookmarks with a decidedly botanical theme. I recently found myself searching for a bookmark while reading a classic Nancy Drew book and found that I had none at the ready. This happens often because I'm never reading just one book at a time. I'm always in the middle of 8 to 12 books, and what I'm in the mood for to read will determine what book I pick up on a particular evening. For example, am I in the mood for a lighthearted easy read, or something more intense, or maybe something nerdy that will teach me something? So because of this, I'm always using multiple bookmarks at once and never seem to have enough. Can anyone else relate to this? Are you like me and your entire bedside table is full of half-read books for you to choose from before bed? Or are you the type of person to read one book through to completion before you move on to the next? Either way, we need more bookmarks. So today we'll be making some bookmarks with paper, pressed flowers, and some random other items you most likely have chillin' somewhere in your house. I went online and googled vintage botanicals and then picked out a few of my favorites. Printed them out, and the plan was to color them in, possibly coffee stain, and then add some pressed flowers, maybe ribbons, and a few other embellishments. If you saw my Cottagecore afternoon video, which I think I filmed that like 2 years ago at this point, but if you've seen that video, you might remember I did something similar to create artwork. I liked how that turned out, and to this day I still have one of those art pieces on my wall, so I thought why not try the same technique but with bookmarks. I had some scrap fabric and very little scraps of lace, which if you saw our last video where we made botanical artwork with glass frames, you'll know the lace scraps are left over from that. I was playing around with some different ideas, but I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to mix the paper with the fabric elements to look cohesive and not just kind of hodgepodge. However, I was sure that I wanted to make some of these look a little more vintage, and so I pulled out some good old coffee. If you've been around my channel for a while, you'll know I love staining things with coffee. I randomly saw this method of staining paper with coffee on a random craft TV show when I was a child, and it just stuck with me. For some reason, coffee staining paper just became a core memory, and I've yet to shake it. So yeah, I really like staining paper with coffee. It's not hard, you just take whatever paper you want to stain, submerge it in the coffee. I let these ones sit just 10 minutes or so, but if you want, you could go for a really dark stain and let them sit pretty much indefinitely. I've let things sit overnight, for days even, mostly because I forgot about them, but it turned out really well, so. Once your piece of paper is done marinating, carefully slide it out and place it onto a flat surface with a towel or a napkin. You can pat it dry or just leave it alone and let it air dry. If you're in a really big hurry, you can take a hairdryer to it, although I do recommend you be careful because that can crinkle the paper up quite a bit if you like crank it on high and hold it too close to the paper. But if you're going for that real vintage look, I guess that might actually be a good thing. So we're going to let those dry, and meanwhile we're going to move on to our other bookmarks. I decided instead of freehanding like I've done in every video up until now, I would be smart and use, I can't think of the name of this thing at the moment. I think it's like an X-Acto or something. I don't remember, but basically this thingy which cuts paper very clean and precise instead of super squiggly and uneven like when I try to freehand cut something. I really liked these botanicals and thought they would make lovely bookmarks. I played around with the idea of adding lace and other embellishments, but in the end decided to keep it pretty simple. have these flowers and, as usual, all other items in the video that I can find linked in the description box below if you are interested. Now, once I placed all the flowers, I realized that if I were to use this as a bookmark as is, that the flowers would be completely destroyed. So I decided laminating the bookmarks would be a great idea, but I did not have any laminating paper on hand. So after putting on my thinking cap, I decided to use clear packing tape, and that actually worked out pretty okay, except that because the flowers were not glued, the static started suctioning the flowers to the tape as I was trying to place it, and it completely messed up the placement of all the flowers. And once the flower is suctioned to the tape, I can't like pull it off and replace it because then it will, rip the flower. So I tried to place the tape down quickly, but as soon as it came close to the bookmark, it just pulled all the flowers to it like the flowers are being summoned back to the mothership. So while it was too late to save this one, I did manage to salvage it enough, and I think it came out alright. After placing a piece of tape to the front, I flipped it over and placed a piece of tape on the back, then I trimmed it down with scissors. I tried this method for one more bookmark, thinking I could work around the static pull, but realized very quickly that this was going to be an issue and was also just really annoying. So even though I really didn't want to get glue involved, I decided it would be best to secure the flowers in some way, shape, or form before placing the tape. Side note, I've seen recipes all over online and even in random books on how to make your own compostable glue, and I've been wanting to try that for a long time, so yeah, I think that's going to end up being a future video idea, but for now, good old Elmer's glue will have to do. Have you ever made your own glue? I would love to hear if you have and how that went, so feel free to leave your glue stories in the comments below. I was very careful to use a very small dab of glue to secure the flowers, just enough to resist the static pull. I was worried that if I used too much glue that it would end up soaking through the paper and creating a mess. Once the flowers were secured, it worked out much better, and it was much easier to place the tape without flowers flying everywhere, so kind of wishing I'd thought to do this from the start. From here, I just kept playing around with where I wanted to place the flowers, and then I would glue them in place, tape both back and front, then trim them down with scissors. I was really enjoying the process at this point and quite pleased with how they were turning out. I realized about halfway through that it would have been really cool to have written little quotes on the back of these, so I tested it out with one, writing first in pencil, then tracing it with a gold marker. However, I realized really quickly that the writing bled through and could be seen on the front, and I just didn't like how that looked. So If I were to have writing on the back and put cute little quotes and things, I would need thicker paper to, you know, make the bookmarks out of, or to maybe print the quotes to have on the back, and that way it wasn't like written in marker and showing through. So while I didn't put anything on the back of these bookmarks, in the future I do plan on printing quotes to have on the back of them as well. So moving on to these other pieces I printed, I really loved these ones because they're daisies, and again, daisies are my favorite flower. I arranged the flowers, lightly secured them with glue, and then for this one I wanted to embellish them just a little. I decided to try and piece together these scraps of lace I had to frame it on either side. Once I knew how I wanted everything placed, like the others, I laid a piece of tape on the front and back and then trimmed it. Then I glued the lace to the back. I was going to leave it like this, but then I decided to glue an additional piece of paper on the back just to cover the lace and make it look cleaner, also to protect it from being inevitably torn off accidentally by yours truly. I then continued on to the next bookmark, and I really like this one with the little bees flying around. I think it's very cute. I decided for this one maybe I would try adding some pressed flowers or leaves to the back of it. I liked this fern looking piece and thought that would look very nice on the back. However, we have the same issue we had when I tried to write on the back of the bookmark. Just like the marker showed through to the front of the bookmark, I found that this fern piece did the same thing. I really wish I had had the forethought to check this issue that we had just literally minutes earlier before gluing and taping the heck out of it. But of course I did not. After some contemplation on what to do, I thought about maybe just leaving it alone and calling it a wash, because I knew with having taped and glued the heck out of it that if I tried to peel it off now, it would probably destroy everything. However, I just really liked this particular bookmark with the cute little bees, and I was upset that the fern was ruining the show. So I decided to go for it and try to carefully peel the fern off the back. As you can see, I was somewhat successful. I did manage to tear the two pieces apart without completely ruining the bookmark, but I did rip the paper a bit, leaving it more thin than it already was. The leaf was still attached to the tape with some of the torn paper, and I thought it actually looked kind of cool. And I thought, what the heck, I'll just add another piece of tape and make this its own bookmark. And that way, the fern does not go to waste. Okay, so I've learned my lesson at this point, and we are done trying to add things to the back of these bookmarks because it clearly doesn't work. This next one, I just added the flowers, glued them, taped as usual, trimmed it down, and I really liked how it turned out. So I know it's been a little while, but remember we were soaking some things in coffee. Well, we're back to those now, and they are dried and ready to go. So I'm going to trim down the daisy picture into a bookmark-ish size. I decided to add just the one dried daisy. I really liked how it popped against the now more vintage looking backdrop. I taped it and then decided to add some twine as like a little tassel. However, while trying to cut the hole for the twine and then while cinching the twine, I accidentally ripped the hole and made it way too big. So I thought about trying to cover it up somehow, maybe with a button or two, but in the end decided to just leave it be because I'm the only one who's going to use this bookmark, so no one's really going to notice but me, and I don't really mind. Okay, this next bookmark, I really like how this turned out. I coffee stained just a blank piece of paper, cut it into a bookmark shape, and then added the pressed flowers. Really love how vintage and dainty and simple this one turned out, and I think I might actually end up making a few more of these. And holding it up here to the other non-coffee stained bookmark, just so you can see the contrast. So at this point, I was really excited with how this one turned out, and so I was just like, let's coffee stain everything! So I decided to stain the rest of the daisy prints that I had on the side there. For this one, I added a little lace tassel and then a little lace along the sides for embellishment. These ones I did decide not to tape because I thought it would kind of ruin the look, and if I'm being honest, I was also out of tape, so I convinced myself I didn't need it. Some of these other little square daisy prints I coffee stained, and then I just literally left them alone. I didn't cut them, I didn't tape them, I didn't add any embellishments. I just really liked how they looked on their own, and they'll still function just fine as a bookmark. I've gotta say, for going into this with not much of a plan, I'm very happy with how these all turned out, and I'm very excited to use them. I also think they're really lovely and would be pretty displayed on my bedside table or a shelf or my desk while they wait to be placed in a book. But I'd love to hear what you think. Have you ever made bookmarks like this? Were your bookmarks different? Did you make bookmarks out of paper or fabric or string or beads or whatever? Share your creative ideas and thoughts in the comments so we can all inspire each other with fun ideas. I hope you've enjoyed hanging out today and that you've been inspired, learned something new, or at least have a smile on your face. My name is Bethany, and this is Joyful Habits, where we daydream and add a touch of whimsy to the ordinary. I'll see you all very soon, and until then, keep smiling. Bye, friends! And with all that being said, my name is Bethany. This is Joyful Habits, where we